Welcome back, everybody. My name is Tucker, and today's continuation of the What's Next series covers the Orlando Magic. They saw a big jump in their performance this season under first-year head coach Steve Clifford as a result of some unforeseen contributions from veterans and progress from their young players. The challenge now, however, will be turning this positive momentum into something more moving forward. They have a lot of big decisions to make this offseason that determine whether this is as high as they will go in the standings, a 42-40 record, the 7th seed in the East, and a first-round playoff exit, or if this is just the beginning of the building of a team to be reckoned with in the East for the next 4 to 5 seasons. As always, I'm going to begin the discussion by identifying some building blocks for this team moving forward, and the Magic have a significant number of candidates. First is Nikola Vucevic, who made the jump from solid player to first-time All-Star this season, just in time for his 2019 free agency. We'll get more into that in the free agency section, but decisions will need to be made related to how badly the team wants to bring him back and or how high they are on the development of last year's first-round pick, Mo Bamba. Indications are that the team would like to have him back, but if the salary values and the contracts he receives on the open market get too high, I wouldn't be shocked to see him playing elsewhere next season, which would be a big blow to their team. Next is Aaron Gordon, who had another solid season and led the team in minutes while being second in scoring and providing a do-it-all type of game. He continues to be a league-average three-point shooter in both attempts and percentage, while being a versatile defender, rebounder, and occasional playmaker. He probably isn't going to get that much better from here on out without being outstanding in any one area, but he is on a fair deal for the next 3 seasons as his annual salary decreases each year, and he's certainly worth keeping around while constantly evaluating his potential trade value in exchange for more help in the backcourt. Next is Evan Fournier, who almost didn't make the cut since he is 27 years old, but nonetheless the production he provides is something that's extremely valuable to this team. He has 2 years left on his contract, with the second year being a player option, and just like most of the players on the Magic roster, he isn't an outstanding player, but is still solid and does enough to mostly justify what he's being paid, while also not really having much upside beyond what he is right now as a playmaker, scorer, and shooter. Next is Jonathan Isaac, my personal favorite from this group for the Magic. It took him a while after an injury-riddled and up-and-down rookie season, but he emerged as a great piece for this team moving forward. His per-game stats might not amaze anybody, but his incredible length, activity, and versatility defensively are huge assets that allow him to play on the wing, at the 4 spot, or even as a small ball 5 at times. Those possibilities are some things that I would expect the Magic to continue to play with moving forward, and continuing to let him grow as a complementary option offensively, attacking closeouts and knocking down open threes should only grow his value to this team. 2 other options here that I hesitate to put in this category simply because they are young and unproven are Mo Bamba and Markelle Fultz. Bamba played in only 47 games and struggled to showcase any part of his game as NBA caliber as a rookie outside of rim protection. That might not be a huge surprise to some people, as he was considered very raw at the time of the draft, and maybe he will figure it out once he puts on more weight and improves his skill level offensively. But at least for now, the dreams Magic fans had of Bamba being a shot-blocking stretch 5 are a bit on the back burner until he shows real tangible progress. And last is Fultz, who was acquired via a midseason trade with the 76ers. We all know the story for him by now, and trading for him was really just a hopeful move that'll turn out to be something rather than believing that he actually will be. For at least the next 2 seasons, fans will probably continue to hold out the hope that Fultz gets healthy, gets his mind right, and once again shows the promise he did in college. But for me personally, I'm not all that optimistic about it at all. Moving on now to the draft, the Magic hold the 16th pick this year. Just like they have for years, this team desperately needs a boost in playmaking and scoring in the backcourt, and that is something that I would expect them to target in this year's draft, as they have basically no promising young players at either guard spot at the moment, depending on your opinion on Fultz. If they get lucky, a player like Kobe White or Romeo Langford might fall to them at 16, but realistically they'll either have to trade up to get one of those guys or stay where they are and take a look at selecting Kevin Porter or Tyler Hero at 16. Any one of those guys would immediately be the most promising young backcourt player on the roster, which is crazy to think about considering how many high draft picks the Magic have had in the past few years, but they've consistently chosen to invest in their front court rather than the guard spots, but I would anticipate that trend coming to an end in this year's draft. Moving on now to free agency. As of right now, without any cap holds or extensions, the Magic are on pace for $85.5 million in payroll for next season, or about $23.5 million in cap space. However, they do have two significant 2019 free agents, Nikola Vucevic and Terrence Ross. I talked a bit about Vucevic earlier, and he should be in line for a raise next season after an all-star season this year, while Ross will likely be paid about the same as he was on his previous deal, just on a long-term contract. Both are still relatively young, 28 and 27 respectively, and provide a good amount of value to a team, with Vucevic's post-scoring and floor spacing and Ross's shooting being their best traits. But between the two of them, Vucevic is by far the more interesting free agency case. Ross has a relatively replaceable skill set as a shooter, so it wouldn't hurt them too much to lose him, but he would also be relatively easy to bring back so long as the Magic are willing to pay him fair value and no other team comes out of nowhere with a big offer. But for Vucevic, on the other hand, there are a lot of things to consider. The first of which is, how far is this team realistically going to go with him as their best player? So far, the answer is a bottom 2 seed in the East, assuming he maintains his all-star level of play moving forward. There's always the possibility that if they do bring him back, that their young players will continue to progress around him and they could challenge for a top 5 seed in the East within a year or two. However, the possibility also exists that they bring him back, his development stagnates, which causes what will likely be a big deal to turn into an overpay. The other young guys don't get much better either, and the need to still feature him stunts the growth of Bamba, and that's really what it comes down to for me. How confident are the Magic that eventually Mo Bamba will become a player that is at least as good as Nikola Vucevic? So there are two real options for the Magic. Let Vucevic walk this summer, or ideally they'd have traded him for value at the deadline this season. See a dip in team success next year while continuing to develop Gordon, Isaac, Bamba, and Fultz, and hoping that Bamba specifically realizes some of his enormous potential and he gives you 80% of what Vucevic would have in the 2020-21 season at less than half the cost, and using that extra cap space, which the Magic will have a lot of in the summer of 2020, to really build this team up around the young guys before re-signing Isaac and Bamba to rookie extensions. The second idea would be to re-sign Vucevic this summer, and probably Ross as well, using up all their cap space this offseason to run it back next year with the same team and hope that internal improvements are enough to help this team climb up the standings and justify bringing him back and risk stunting the growth of Bamba. And really there isn't a clear answer here. On one hand, the first option has a lot of risk. There's no guarantee that Bamba will ever really be a good player, and they could very easily ruin the first bit of positive momentum the franchise has had in a long time by deciding not to re-sign their best player as a free agent. But if everything did work out correctly in option 1, the Magic would be a power in the East within 2 years. On the other hand, option 2 has less risk but also less reward. Running it back with the same group next year, when you account for the internal improvements of the young guys and adding the 2019 draft pick to the mix, should mostly guarantee the Magic another playoff appearance so long as they stay healthy. However, depending on the length and value of the contract they bring back Vucevic on, they might just have to roll with that group for the next 3 or 4 years with little flexibility to improve the roster. But at least they'll keep up the positive momentum that they built this year. However, there is one in-between option that I'd like to mention in addition to these two. Let's just say, for the sake of this example, that the Magic brought back both Ross and Vucevic for a combined $30 million a year. $20 million for Vucevic and $10 million for Ross. This would allow them to push for the playoffs next season once again and develop their younger players. Then in the 2020 offseason, assuming Fultz doesn't show any more promise, then they'll likely turn down his team option and let him become a free agent. And when you account for that $12 million in savings, the $30 million owed to Vucevic and Ross, and a slight increase in the projected salary cap for that season, the Magic could go into next summer with essentially the same core roster that they have right now, plus $36 million in cap space to spend to improve their team. And that sounds like the ideal scenario for the Magic and what they're probably hoping for this offseason. Sure, if they let their free agents walk this summer, they could go into the summer of 2020 with even more cap space, but that doesn't really help them if they don't have a good team to try and convince free agents to sign with them. However, the key to all of this is bringing back their 2019 free agents on fair deals, because that will have a huge impact on their flexibility moving forward. If a team throws a big offer at Vucevic and raises his value, then the Magic might not have a choice but to let him walk, and this whole plan is out the window, and the same goes for Ross. But it's interesting to see that a perfect scenario does exist that allows them to re-sign their best player, develop their young guys, and go into next summer with the cap space to really improve their team around their established players to push to be a true power in the East. In the end for the Magic, who knows what's really going to happen with them this summer or the next, but I do know that the single biggest variable in all of this is what they do with Nikola Vucevic this summer. If they make the correct decision on his free agency, they could be setting themselves up to be real contenders in the East by the 2020-21 season. Well, if they make the wrong decision, it could completely reset the significant progress they made as a franchise this season. And there you have it. That is going to be the end of today's video, and I thank you all very much for watching. Once again, my name is Tucker. If you missed any of my previous videos, then be sure to check out the boxes on screen. Thanks again, and I'll see you all next time.